Hello everybody, and let's exit to port. It is currently the 21st of December at 10:22 in the morning. I am not yet awake, as we've talked about previously about me learning I have ADHD. Most likely. I'm actually going to the doctor today to figure out more about that. Sleep regulation is an issue, which means that I am very, very tired. Thankfully, as per usual on these journeys, on exiting to port and such, I am joined by the effervescent and bubbly and lovely Mr. Grumbles the Dwarf.
Well met, everybody. Yes, indeed. I also fizzle and melt if you put me in too much water.
like a dissolving tablet to make you feel fizzy and
exactly.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'll be honest. I have a headache. I've taken 2 painkillers. I have my energy drink. There's a knot under my left shoulder. I'm not feeling the Christmas joy right now. But we do.
This is welcome to Exit to Port Bar Humbug edition.
But then again, like it is the 21st. Like Christmas hasn't really set it. Like that's the thing in Norway. We have Advent. We don't like Christmas starts on the 24th for us. And everything up to that is called julestria, as in the stress, like the strive to make Christmas happen. So yeah, no, I think most people can relate. And I'm keeping it very traditional. Like the only thing I've put up is an Advent star. Like no other things have been put up or hung up right now. Don't know if you're doing the same thing.
I don't really go in for the whole decoration thing. What with all the open forges and fires around here, it'd be a bit dangerous. But I do take a certain amount of pleasure in sort of walking around, driving, looking out of windows and things, and seeing that other people have gone to quite an effort. So thanks everybody around me for doing that stuff, so I don't need to.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of buildings around here that have all sorts of lights around. Of course, I did put some lights on Durac. That I did.
That's more of a safety issue, though, to be honest. That's so that people can be aware that he's there, that he's not going to spring out on people.
Also, partially to make him feel safe in the cold, harsh winters of northern Norway. Anyway, today's title is Season Finale Greetings. Because this is, like, I guess this first year has been sort of a season 1 of the podcast, and we do intend on keeping on going. We might change some things in the format. Who knows? We haven't spoken about it. We haven't discussed it, but we would also like some feedback if there's something you'd like to see us change in the way we do things here. But
indeed,
in usual fashion, let's just jump straight into the different topics we have. For those watching on YouTube, you can see them in front of you, together with the wonderful spectrograph thing going on here whenever we speak. Like, see, there you go. It jumps up when you do that. What? I'm easily amused,
it's just
okay?
like, that's the cheeriest you've been all morning. Every once in a while, we should just randomly throw in a
You know, that reminds me of the teleport sound from the original Worms game. Yeah, like that random moments there. But let's jump straight into it. For those listening on other places, I think there should be a list of topics in front of you, if I remember to put it in there. We're gonna start out talking a bit about World of Warships and the crates. We're gonna continue on with some War Thunder, some gaming, some streaming in general, some role playing, questions from viewers, and something to smile about. And yeah, like as we were having our editorial meeting, and then going through, we talked about the topics. Of course, we wanted to discuss. Grumbles asked if I've had anything good from my crates. Now, I don't wanna poop on anyone's parade or anything, and I wasn't aware of this, but apparently CCs get a lot of boxes. So I got 50 of each box this year from Wargaming.
I remember the surprise on your face and in your voice when they arrived. You're like, "Hey, what happened?"
Yeah, because this happened during a grumbling. And it took me a while to kind of realize what that crap just happened. Because like with the new way Wargaming have set up crates and such, you can only have 100 crates, and anything else will be automatically opened. It won't be on backlog or anything. It'll just automatically open. So I was like, hold on, what just happened? Why is there a sound? Why do I have... And I went through and I looked, like, did I get a gift? No. So then I started looking at some forums after people started saying, well, the only one who can do that is Conway. Conway here being the name of Wargaming, of course, apparently. And yeah, no, they dumped a lot of crates on me. And with that, I actually ended up getting all of the ships from the list. So yeah. So I'm happy. It turned out to be a lot of steel for me too, which allowed me to get the Ragnar, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, that ship. I'll tell you that much. So yeah, no, I've been lucky. But I know I'm not the only one who's been lucky. Of course, I was lucky by force, I guess. But but I've seen a lot of other people, like with the because Twitch Prime drops, or Twitch Prime Gaming, or whatever it's called. They gave you some Santa crates through that. You got some free ones through the news and such. And I know a lot of people actually got ships from them.
Yeah, there were a lot of crates doing the rounds, and you know, I think that's just part and parcel of this whole recovering towards the end of the year from the mid-year shenanigans and the state of the game. So I think it's still a good gesture, and it's still part of the progression that we needed to see so desperately, and it's really good to see it continuing with some good cheer. You know, at the end of the day, though, these are still sort of, you know, still a gamble. And even with all the good news around that, I've still seen a few people being frustrated. Some people have had a lot of luck, and some people, you know, not so much. And all we can say again is just, you know, try to have the patience and see it for what it is. And, you know, eventually, you know, you've got to, I think it's one of those, like, we tend to get a bit distracted by, oh, let's have a nice shiny thing or whatever, and then get very disappointed if it doesn't happen. But ultimately, you've got to try and focus on, are you enjoying the game itself, each battle to battle? Because if it's only about opening up a new bit of digital content, you know, it's not the best basis.
No, I actually had a conversation with somebody who said that, oh, I only got premium out of it. But I was like, did you look at the drop rates? And they were like, no. Well, the premium account is a 1% drop chance. And they were like, oh shit, really? Well, that's pretty good then. I was like, yeah, exactly. It is pretty good. And then that kind of turned their view on that as a drop around. And but I do kind of get it, because everybody wants to see the new toy, but at the same time, most of the ships on the list are directly purchasable. There's of course the allure of the rare ships, Musashi and so on, but the overall drop rate of things, I do honestly believe that people being aware of them made it so that people were like, oh shit, I got one of these drops. Oh, that's good. I'm happy. You know, they were more aware of what they were actually getting, and people could make more of an informed choice regarding the boxes. And overall, I'm fairly happy about this year's Christmas event and how they went about the crates, and the dockyard, of course, too. Like it feels like they're giving more in the dockyard, in the way of things you can get for free.
Yeah, it's nice to see Wargaming giving more of a ship.
Yeah. But like they don't have to. They never had to. So it was like because they are a business, they could go ultimately 100% for just profit the entire way. So they don't have to give away free stuff like this, but they do, and that's a good thing. So. For anybody who is kind of going, oh, I didn't get my free Musashi, I'm like, no.
Wait, have you been reading my diary again?
No.
I didn't get my free Musashi.
No, they are a business, and we have to keep that in mind. So. Even with all this, like there is a purchase going on, and I mean they are kind of creating a market for themselves, and I mean that's just smart business.
Yeah, I think it's like we're maybe finding that balance again, getting to a healthier position of like business at all costs. You know, kind of that feeling of, well, screw everyone else. To the point of like, okay, this and this makes sense, and we can kind of sort of, you know, get to a point where we're all comfortable and like intellectually can sort of rationalize it and say, okay, that seems reasonable. And I think that was where they were at in the sort of summer and the year or so leading up to it. And people will argue back and forth about, oh, it's been like this and but anyway, in the general sense, we're moving into a healthier overall situation. Can it still move a little bit further? Yes. Will it? Hopefully so. It looks like they have the right intentions. And again, you know, if it's not making business sense for them, then at some point they could say, well, we'll just wrap this thing up then. We're kind of, you know, it lived its life and moving on. So I don't think they have the intention to do that. Yeah, hopefully the player base can get to a point where they're just relaxing a little bit and focusing more on having fun and enjoying the gaming experience, rather than, you know, which at the end of the day is also a privilege a lot of the time as well, to be able to have that free time to do it, rather than all the negativity.
Something that I'm kind of wondering the business sense in, other than the idea of, well, we spent a lot of money developing this, is Russian CVs. I don't see the business sense in them. I honestly, I have no problem with any of the other CVs anymore. Note the words anymore. After the introduction of the Russian CVs, I'm kind of going, where did they, how did them make sense? Like, I don't care about the historical correctness. I'm thinking of a purely game balance sense here. They're being introduced, and they're just, they have no, I don't feel like they have a counter. Change my mind by all means to anybody who's out there. If you have something that is a good counter to the Russian CVs, but I'm struggling to see it and find it. So please do help me out here.
I think, yeah, I don't see it either. The only thing I would say, this isn't in any way like defending it, but like it's highly likely that a lot of these decisions were taken a significant amount of time ago.
Yes. Yes.
So sometimes we tend to say, "Oh, this just dropped now." So whichever flipping was sitting over a cup of coffee or vodka or whatever, 2 weeks ago, and made this decision or whatever to drop this into this patch. I think that bless them, they still can't help themselves sometimes tripping over, like we just talked about all the positive things that they're doing and the general direction or turn that things have taken in a much more progressive and positive direction. And then they drop that into the game. You're like, I mean, the only thing you could say is maybe they could have just postponed that one a little bit and thought, maybe we've just regained some goodwill. Things are starting to calm down a little bit. Maybe dropping the Russian CVs into but again, things that were set in motion quite some time ago. I think, I don't know. I've had my encounters with like the chocolate bar, as I call it. Nakimov, Pobeda to a lesser extent, but even so, and that's not fun, and then again, you've got that combined with the whole state of the game with the subs and everything. There's definitely some games out there where you're like, okay, this particular battle was no fun. You can't, I don't want to like tar it all and say, well, I hate these things or I hate those things or whatever, but there are certain battles where you're kind of done within the first sort of 5 to 7 minutes. And you think, okay, looking at it as objectively as possible, you're like, okay, how did you calculate this to be a fun experience? And, I guess that just highlights again that there's plenty of things that still need to be adjusted in some way, or that need some further alterations, and some of it that can't be changed because from the business sense is not so much what they bring, but just the fact that it was done, that the money was spent, and that went through the development cycle. Maybe they need to re-evaluate.
I think partially there, sorry to jump in, but I think partially there is just what you're saying. It's the business part of it, and it's bad project management, honestly, because even though you spent money on it, doesn't mean that you have to spend more money to implement it. There is always the option of terminating and saying, no, we are not going further with this. And I do think that the Russian CVs should have been one of them, where they see the state of the game and go like, no, you know what? No, let's put a lid on this. Let's pull a Graf Zeppelin on this, and say we're not implementing it in the current state. We'll go another round.
I think they might,
subs at least they have that mentality, and they're still testing. But on that note, I want to say I had an ISA game the other day. And you know what I learned in that game?
What?
The ISA and any other hybrid has no countermeasure. What do you think I came up against? There was nothing I could do. There was nothing. Like, at least with a CV, you can dodge, you can turn, you can keep on shooting down planes and so on and so forth. A destroyer, you can dodge, you can turn, you can keep on weaving towards it without any sort of issue and so on. If you do that with a sub, the only thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to run straight into the homing torpedoes, making it easier for them to hit you. So I was like, okay. And then there were no teammates. There was nothing, like nobody to help me. So from a game balance point of view, the subs, they still need more countermeasures. And we still need to have the ability to take them out. And I agree. These are probably some of these things where you mentioned that there was a decision made a long time ago to go ahead and get this in, and we're seeing the effects of it now.
Yep. I agreed. I think that says it all. I think that I think that I try to look at it, zoom out a little bit, and think, trying to rerun it through my mind, where's the level of frustration versus the level of entertainment and enjoyment you're having from the product. And I think that there's definitely scenarios with submarines where they're more often frustrating than it is fun to engage with them, as you said. And there are many cases where you simply can't, or it doesn't feel effective. I've seen that even in a destroyer chasing one down, and you're like, oh, this doesn't work in this particular scenario, or whatever. And it's not so much, it's more you get a lucky scenario where it works out. They happen to have run out and must surface, or you happen to have your depth charges at the front or the rear just when you need them, that kind of thing. But that seems more coincidental than something you can kind of calculate and plan for, versus the risks that you're taking of being in those positions. And the other little thing that I've noticed that was quite frustrating in recent playing, and I've been having a lot more fun, continue to having fun in the game, was double CV matchmaking.
Yeah.
Tier 8, Tier 6. It's full of it. And I still don't get that. And I don't think ever will. I don't want to go on about it for much time at all, but Wargaming, if you're listening, let's just not have that anymore, because that builds up additional frustration and brings out the toxicity within the player base. It's an open wound.
It is.
And seeing that, you're like, okay, because as Tiger said, you can overall, with enough time and experience, you're getting to the point now where you can say, okay, we can kind of do this and this as a countermeasure. The Russian CVs are a little bit exceptional, and multiple CVs in a match is an exceptional circumstance. And those things need to be calmed down somehow so that people can come back to more enjoyment versus frustration.
But CV players matchmaking, yeah, that's also something you need to work on, the matchmaking. So, just I feel like that is probably going to be the next step for Wargaming, working on the matchmaking bot and how it behaves, how long it takes, and possible options of saying, no, I'd rather not fight CVs or whatever. I mean that's not going to be viable, let's be fair, but let's look at options for matchmaking.
Yep.
Speaking of matchmaking, there's a match being made in War Thunder with me and a certain battle cruiser, or a battleship as it's called in World of Warships. Oof, boy, the Scharnhorst has arrived in War Thunder.
Indeed, she's very shiny.
Oh, she is very shiny. I haven't been able to test her out much, but my lords, this thing, as much as I love her in Warships, dude,
she's very shiny, and she's bristling with armaments, and she takes a good punch and keeps on rocking. It's very fun. I think it's the usual thing with new exciting shiny content comes in. There's been a couple of things. One is lots and lots of people are playing it.
Yep.
Which is quite good, which is really good to see. It's brought a whole bunch of people into Naval trying it out, because people are just excited to see that content, which I think is really good. It obviously sets the stall out for, like, we're going to bring more of that World War II era into the game for the big ships. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I've played her a couple of times. I haven't quite got the feel for, like, okay, guns versus which targets I'm going for and so forth. It still feels a little bit sort of hit and miss, if you'll excuse the pun. Trying to feel my way into that. They've also brought in the float plane mechanic, the catapult planes, and they're pretty hilarious to be able to nip up into the air, go around, do some spotting, try and land on the water for a cap. We're not going to talk about how many times that's worked versus it hasn't. Fine. The only one that worked was when I took the plane off it, and you're at such low altitude, it accidentally, it was on the Helena actually, it just landed back in the water almost straight away. And then I was like, you know what? It's only 3 kilometers. We'll just stay in the water. The rest of my landings on the water have involved missing floats and sinkage. But we'll get there. But that's a great new mechanic that they've brought in as well, in conjunction with the Scharnhorst, but also applies to any other ships out there that happen to have a floating plane aircraft, and maybe at some point we could see some CV action in there. I know we've just talked about the negative side of that from a Warships perspective, but I think in War Thunder, where it's a lot more tactical and there's a much, you know, there's the whole aerial air battle aspect of the game, aviation. I think you've got the basis there, you've got the player base with a different perspective, I think, of things, different sets of expectations, and I think there'd be more acceptance and usability of it, and we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. I'm sure that's going to be a big project.
I'm not sure how they would implement CVs in War Thunder, but one thing I have a feeling we could see then is, of course, for planes to land on the CV as opposed to having to go back to
exactly
to the airfield to repair and such. So
well,
that could be cool. Like I don't know, like maybe even a mobile spawn point. I have no idea how to actually implement it for the player. But yeah, no, that could definitely be fun.
I like the idea. Maybe it fits better to like scenarios and, you know, and custom battles and events and that kind of thing. But I do really like the idea that you could, if you think about it from a sort of tactical point of view, okay, if we head over here, this is where the planes are going to be coming in from, or they could spawn there, or they could still use an airfield because you have this naval plus air mixture anyway. And it would just be interesting, even for, you know, ground. You could have a ground coastal battle and maybe have that as a different perspective for it as well. So I think I don't have it all mapped out in my mind yet, obviously, but I do envisage that this could be a really exciting development just because of the dynamics to get people away from statically, like, here's a cap, here's sort of an island cover area, here we can quickly grab this cap and then hold it for the rest of the game, that, you know, and make it more dynamic and have people moving around the map. I like some of the hybrid PvE, PvP battle modes that you get in War Thunder as well, because it forces you to have to focus on different targets and not sit in one spot.
Oh, hold on. So you said ground coastal. Suddenly in my mind now, there's a lonely Stug sitting out on this little islet, and the Ark Royal comes sailing past, and the Stug is like, "Ah, my God!" You know, and tries to fire at it. The Ark Royal looks and like, "You want to go, little guy? You want to go?" Yeah, it's that sort of thing going on in my head.
It'd be
right
pretty
now.
funny though, wouldn't it? Like,
It
like
would
there
be.
goes.
It would be.
Yeah, flat tank versus aircraft carrier fight.
It's kind of like the actual tale of when the HMS Rodney was next up for shoreborne bombardment, and the shore bombardment had been called in on, I think it was a Panzer 3 or 4, can't remember. The only thing left of that after HMS Rodney, the sister ship of the HMS Nelson, just so that's said, was the turret ring. That was the only thing left after that, because strong bombardment was called in one by one, and you never knew which ship would be doing the bombardment and anything. So, yeah, that is definitely a possibility. But speaking of Rodney and Nelson, Scharnhorst is possibly paving way for something bigger. We already know that the Yamato and other larger ships are modeled in game. They're not fully fleshed out and ready to go and be used, but we know they've been modeled. Lexington and other CVs have been modeled. So there's plenty of the larger ships already in the game and available as a resource. So yeah, like I think War Thunder are stepping it up when it comes to these things.
It's gonna happen. We have to believe.
It'll
happen.
So my question then is, if we have the Yamato, how would she fit into a sim event?
Well, I think that there's plenty of material and ideas. I know that, speaking of the sim events, there's been a lot of effort and preparation done for a number of these. We had one just this weekend past with the Rutgen Forest event, and my mind springs more to the Musashi and the sinking of the Musashi and all of the that huge battle around that particular event, which would involve again carriers and vessels of all different classes and sizes and things on both sides. I think that would be, some sort of dash through the Gulf. I like that idea. I like, you could even do something where like maybe the 2 or 3 of the core or the key ships, maybe even just like AI controlled, and everyone else is playing everything that was in support of the day. I don't know. I just think that the way they've done the game, where you've got this lovely hybrid between PvE and PvP content, allows you to even have that as a regular game mode, as a sort of a mission or an operation type event. And I think that in terms of, imagine the cinematics, right, where you're actually controlling, say, the dive bombers diving down on the Musashi, or you're in the carrier group, or et cetera, et cetera. I just think my mind is kind of like a little bit distracted right now. I'm like, oh, that's like somebody just put a giant rum cake in front of me or something. Oh! I just want to shove my face in it and go.
No motorboating the rum cake. But yeah, no, I don't know if you noticed, but that was a segue.
Oh, of course I did. Yeah, so we were playing in the sim event. We did some naval recently with WingalingDragon and the community, where we had people just kind of diving into the queue and trying to force it to put us all together and having a bit of a laugh. We did that with mostly reserve ships, destroyers, and that, so that people didn't have to spend money and time grinding out the naval, because it's gaining in popularity, but it's still insignificant compared to the tanks and the planes, obviously.
Yes.
There's still some work to be done there by Gaijin to kind of tidy up some of the loose ends in the naval, but it's really, really progressing, and you can see the changes like month for month. It's very, very impressive. And we got involved in the Rutgen Forest sort of reenactment or play on that event. Those events from late World War II, with the US forces charging through, taking on the Germans, defending their position in the city. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was really uplifting to, again, see so many people actively engaged. We had like about 34 plus people in the actual battle itself, which is more than half the capacity, I think. And we had bunches more people watching various streams and contributing to the laugh and the enjoyment of the whole scenario. So it was very, very enjoyable. We did a little cinematic thing at the beginning of it, and then went through. And I think the battle, I don't know for sure, but it was like, I think an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, where it was just raging, and the US were like capturing points and airfields and pushing the Germans back, and the Germans staunchly defending their positions. Really, really great stuff. So like custom maps, custom sort of AI components to it as well, like anti-aircraft systems and anti-tank gun positions and whatnot to try and get past. And just everyone kind of going at it and trying to use some tactics and whatever and team up. It was really fun to see and experience.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the things pop up and a notification about it. And I really do want to join at some point, but not had the time and place to do it yet. But the sim events, when you have communities come together like this, in the way that WingalingDragon is getting people together and doing that, that is what builds. What should we say? It builds a certain community, really, around a game. It builds a good relation between the development of it and the community playing it, but also the streamers featuring it, which I think is really cool. Because, like we've said before, WingalingDragon, amazing guy in the way he approaches the game, the way he approaches the community, and putting this together, showing that part of the game and that part of the community off in such a grand manner, that will just bring more people in, and I'm really happy to see that. So if we're able to get more sim events for more branches, that's really cool. That is really cool.
Yep. Well, we're gonna try also to put a custom battle together. It won't be sim as such, I believe, as I understand it, but we're trying to do something as well with naval, where we do. I think LC suggested channel dash type of event. There's opportunities to use some of the German big boats now that we got the shiny horse in the game. And again, that's, as you said, it's just building up the excitement and anticipation and getting more and more people interested in it. So hopefully we can do plenty of things like that.
That's a strength that War Thunder has as a game, where you can build custom events, you can build custom games in a larger capacity than in any other game of this type I've seen so far. So and that all with standard servers. Like, you don't have to set up your own server or anything. Like, it's there. It's all built into the base game. So there's some modding in certain places, but mostly everything is there in the base game. So it's going to be cool to see where this leads.
Also, top tip for anyone before we just move on slightly, but top tip, if you're enjoying the replay system of War Thunder as I am, remember to just make sure you get your replay footage in before the next patch. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that one that one's pretty big.
It's a shame because it's such a great system as well. It needs just two things. It needs to not, be useless after the next patch, right? I'm going to try and keep a copy of the old game client next time and see what happens. But anyway, who wants to keep an extra, 40, 60 gig and so forth?
Yeah.
But it also needs to have the ability to rewind the video. Because at the moment you can slow it right down, you can pause it, you can go forward as fast as you want, or as makes sense. You can start the replay over again. You can't go backwards. So if you just had that one moment, you're like, oh, that's the bit I need. Nope.
Yeah.
Restart the replay forward through to that bit and make sure you don't miss the capture the second time.
Yeah, no. I know a lot of other replay clients and such have the same issue. Counter-Strike has it and such. So I don't know why. Like, it seems to be a weird limitation on for some strange reason. So if anybody has an explanation, feel free to let us know. Actually, World of Warships has the same thing. I don't think you can rewind in that. Can you?
I don't remember. I've not used it very often.
Regardless, there's a pretty big thing coming up in War Thunder.
Indeed. Speaking of the community coming together.
Yes, starting on the 27th of December and running to the 31st. There's a charity event coming up called Play for Peace. Organized by a lot of the community members that are also voices behind other community events such as Stahl an der Heide, that's based around the Panzermuseum in Munster, where a lot of the War Thunder community come together to look at tanks. But this time around, they're doing a charity event called Play for Peace. They are choosing to support a wonderful German group that is it is largely a civilian group, but it was originally founded, I think, by German soldiers in 49. Can't quite remember the numbers. Anyway, this is a group of people that go around Europe tending to World War II war graves. Well, not just World War II war graves, but war graves in general, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to be traveling to Russia soon, as far as I remember how Bits talked about it. And it's a great charity, I feel.
Yep.
Because
I've just pulled up the numbers on the website. So if people are interested to read up on it, they can go to playforpeace.de. So that's play, then the number 4, peace.de, short for Deutschland.
We'll leave a link.
Yep. We'll put the link in the doobly-doo. And there's a whole bunch of information. So the original foundation was put together in actually 16th of December 1919. And then the other dates are all about recognition when it's getting formally registered and so forth. That it says here, for example, numbers about the club in the year 1995. People's Federation maintained 459 war graves with a combined total of 1.6 million war graves across 34 different countries worldwide.
There you go.
And since then to 2019, it's risen to 46 different countries. So that's quite incredible and shows that connection that can be made anywhere in the world across languages, cultures, and the rest of it. And I think, one of the most important aspects of this is allowing people the opportunity to commemorate, to reflect, and to learn from the past, so that we can just keep doing better moving forward. So, yeah, there's a lot of really, really good information on there, and I'm super pleased to have been given the hint by Tiger.
Yep.
About this, and I believe there's something like 60 streamers and content creators and more that are involved in it overall. And during those dates, we're going to be putting on as many different War Thunder streams as possible, just to help raise that awareness and get some support for this fantastic organization.
Streamers, big and small. There's going to be esports tournaments with 2 versus 2 and 7 versus 7. I think it is at least a 2 versus 2 tournament. And there's some pretty big sponsors. We're talking the Republic of Gamers part of Asus is a sponsor. Nvidia is a sponsor. There's a tie-in to Cody's Toy Barn which is a German store, I believe. There will be more information about that, how that ties in, just so that's said, coming up. There's who else? I mean, there was I can't.
Here says Cafe Fietek.
Yes, Cafe Fietek. They build PCs for a lot of big events. Amongst them, Gamescom they've built for, and so on. So they're helping out. There will be more information. We're also hoping. I have to admit I haven't looked up any news on this, but we're hoping that Gaijin says yes to activating drops on all of the streamers that are active, and there will be different drops. We're talking historical camos. We're talking boosters. Hopefully, I really do hope that this is something that'll be up and running for this, because it's a pretty cool event, and it's worth checking out. So we'll leave a link in the description and everything for this.
Yep.
On that, there's also a pretty cool trailer. I get goosebumps. I've seen it like 20-30 times now. I get goosebumps every time. It is so well made, and it's all community made, and it's just
Yeah, it is really chef's kiss. It truly is.
So please do go check that out. Yeah. No, I don't think we're gonna say anything more about that right now. We're gonna move swiftly along to gaming in general. I'm not sure how long we're gonna be talking about this subject, but as a lot of you who are listening to this podcast are aware, we had, well, still have, a company in New World called Boss. But due to various issues with the game, like for me, like the whole trading went down and you couldn't talk to people and so on. It was just, it led to me being away from the game a lot. I'll still be logging in, I'll still be doing my stuff from time to time, but it led to a lot of discomfort in the game, and I think it did that for most people. Which means that Boss as a whole is taking a new turn, because we're handing the reins over to a fantastic member of the group, and one of Grumpy Beard's moderators, Mr. Gieselbart. He will be taking over, as far as I know. And they are there's going to be a tiny bit of a change there. So for anybody who plays New World, what do they have in store, Grumbles? Do we know?
Yeah, so as you said, so for the company, we're just switching up a little bit to loosen up some of the requirements for recruitment based on suggestions and feedbacks and discussions with the officers and some of our player base in there, just to make it possible to bring in people a little bit more efficiently, to explain to them up front, okay, this is kind of what we expect. This is how we play the game and how we work together as a community. You know, if that's cool with you, cool, come and have some fun with us. If that doesn't quite fit with you, or you want to do other things, or you just don't fit in, whatever reason, then we can act on it quickly. We will obviously be giving the opportunity for those members who've remained more active and are still fully engaged and committed time-wise to be able to have a say in that, on the direction that the company takes, you know, things like upgrading towns or whether to take on settlements and that kind of thing. On top of that, there's the server merge change coming, or that's just gone through, where we need to look at, okay, what is the reaction of the player base? How are people, you know, approaching topics like settlement ownership? Is it something that, you know, Boss even wants to do, or does that tie us down and give us too many commitments and too much time being spent on that topic? Is it easier just to play the game, the rest of the game content, and make strong allies and sort of just, or even just ignore that part of the game, which I think is one of the aspects that needs some further development. I think it's a great concept, but it needs some adjustments and rebalancing and some thought about. I think in particular the aspect of, once territories have been owned and the map is kind of played out for the first phase, how to then make it more of an enjoyable experience to then go to war and to challenge one another. I think that's one of the things that limits the amount of enjoyment that can be had in the game, is that some of the mechanics and some of the sort of meaning, or the consequences and the timing of those things are rather restrictive and becomes more of a chore than something that's entertaining, certainly in a sense of the broad population on the servers. So you know, shout out to the hardcore players who are still really into that stuff. It's not meant to be in any way disrespectful or disregarding the effort and time that they put in. But we can also just simply observe statistically that that isn't something that is engaging with the vast majority. So that is what it is. Yeah, and the other thing is...
Speaking of that, just want to quickly say, for me, one of the things that kind of annoyed me once we had a town was, like, you upgrade, like you work hard to upgrade, and then you are forced to downgrade. Like, no matter how the invasion goes, you are forced to downgrade. It's like, why? Why does the thing that goes on over at the fort affect our town? That and just kind of annoyed me. That I sat there and was like, yeah, great. Now we have to do this all over again. Like, when it comes to upkeep, sure, yeah, pay taxes on it, but I felt like the changes and where you really should be sinking stuff in is in the fort, because that's where you do the defense, that's where you do the work for a war and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That is where the downgrade should go, not on the town itself.
Mm-hmm.
There should be a different mechanic there. I don't quite know what, but that just annoyed me.
I think you're right. I think that's one of the areas that needs some development, is the whole owning the settlement, the positive consequences and the consequences of administration, and sort of the challenge of the upkeep and so forth. I think some of it is timing. Ironically, I think that for me, there's a degree of a lack of granularity. Like, there's a lot of granularity in certain parts of the game, and then it feels like a lack of depth in others. And I think that's one of the areas, how I would describe some of the things you just mentioned, is that there isn't like this well thought through, well mapped out depth of like, okay, these particular activities have these consequences on this area, and on this particular part of it, and these others affect, for example, only the fort. Some other activities might affect the settlement, and then that would give more of a strategic and tactical aspect to the whole war and the tension between the territories, because you would have to act. Say, I would like to see a mechanic that involved you had to kind of pick, where are we going to have a go at? Are we going for a more militaristic approach and we're going to attack the fort, and that therefore has these consequences? Maybe that affects your ability to wage war yourselves, to have access to like things like a better forge. If you don't have control of the fort and so forth, you don't have it upgraded to a certain level, then you can't do certain military type activities. And then the settlement, conversely, could be things that are more civilian oriented. So you can't have a great kitchen if your settlement is under threat and you don't maintain defenses against that threat or whatever. So I think that the game has the opportunity to bring that in, and maybe that will be part of the longer term roadmap. But I feel like that's an area where the whole settlement and territory for me feels very superficial. There's not enough depth to how that all works, and I hope that that's something that gets fleshed out, because I think that would bring more of a more enjoyment, because it would bring more variety in the challenge and make you have to think and behave as a company and with your allies together in a more thought out and a more sort of structured way. Maybe that's asking too much for a public MMO. Could also be. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, we'll just have to see where it goes. Exactly. I will definitely be going by from time to time, collecting some hemp, trying to sell it, and these sorts of things. But yeah, no, it's weird. It's weird. So you mentioned the server merge. I'm kind of afraid and also excited to see where this is going to be going. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that sort of exacerbated some of the problems, because they obviously had this initial issue with like not enough capacity to service the demand, and then they flooded capacity in to try to solve and combat those issues, and then ended up with too much dispersal of the player base. So the merge should hopefully bring that back in to a more level situation, and we just have to see how it develops. I think that the festive update is funnily enough is one of the things where I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting and exciting, and I'd like to jump on there. Haven't had the time to do so, but I definitely think that will draw a lot of people in. People generally love those kind of festive, and there's also some new permanent content that comes off of that as well. Let's see. Fingers crossed that these various activities, I think the game needs a little bit more time to settle down again. And maybe we'll see. I think they've started work on beginning to publish and be a little bit more communicative in terms of where their roadmap's going, and we'll just have to wait and see what they've got planned for 2022.
You mentioned the server merger and also the flooding of servers, and I'm like, and this is where you see me do the upside down sarcastic smiley. If they'd only given enough space on the server to start with, I don't think we would have had this issue. Yes, we would have had very full servers. By all means, we would have very full servers. But having full servers without queues is a good thing. So, I'm just going to...
Definitely some lessons learned for them, I'm sure, and hopefully they have. So, yeah.
Would you look at that? There's a dead horse in the corner that we keep whipping. Anyway, let's move swiftly along. I've started playing Subnautica. To anybody who knows me, that should be a great surprise to you. I would love to say that it's going along swiftly, but it's not, because it's me, and it's my way of conquering my thalassophobia, I guess. I've made more progress than I thought I would, mostly through accident, rather than through actively finding or through actively going out and finding the stuff myself and having a goal to do it. But yeah, more of a, oh, what's that? Oh, that sort of thing, which has been kind of fun, because I've actually watched people play through Subnautica and watched playthroughs both from Colo, Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, and so on. And it's been a lot of fun to watch them. But doing it myself and discovering these things and going out, a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Honestly, it's going to be terrifying later on when I go further down into the deep. You get all these weird worms, and then you find all these large giant creatures, and I know there's going to be some moments of I have to walk away from the screen right now sort of thing, but for now it's going well, and it's on YouTube. Hey, so you can watch everything there. We're not doing it on stream because I'm not getting any jump scares from bits or such while I'm doing that recording. I'll tell you that much.
No, that would be pointless. There's a point which shouldn't be crossed, which is streamer has heart attack because of bit alert.
Yeah, no.
That's not appropriate. But go check out that series. I haven't had a chance, but it is on my watch list and it will be watched. And I hope that it will be a little bit more comfortable for me watching it, as a from behind the couch. Probably with the sound muted, it'll be fine. Not a problem. But kudos to you for having a go, and I like that you've taken that different creative slant and doing it. Makes a lot of sense. So I genuinely hope you get a lot of fun out of it, and not too much heartache.
I honestly think that for others struggling with the same sort of thing and in the same game, watching somebody who has the same issues go through it and kind of take those steps, it might be a good thing. I don't know. Like that, I'm kind of just feeling my way through the game anyway. So even though I know a lot, so it's but no, I am actually enjoying it, which is weird.
That's cool. Well, there's also the irony of Tiger Nibbler being nibbled on by all the fish.
Yeah. So far, there's not been any big nibbles, only tiny nibbles by, these serrated teeth bastards, threshers. I don't know what they're called.
That's their actual in-game name.
Yeah, serrated teeth bastard is his name. No, there's definitely some stuff going on there, and I've made discoveries in this that I didn't know about, even in the even through the multiple playthroughs. Like, oh, really? That's here? Ooh, cool. I've had those sorts of moments. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
Speaking of good moments, how's Icarus treating you?
Icarus has been treating me pretty darn well. Speaking of things that like to nibble on me,
maybe that should have been the segue.
Yeah, it's been highly entertaining because the game, the premise is on co-op and supporting one another, playing off each other's kind of skill sets, and it sounds so obvious on the face of it, but this is the first game that I've played or that I really remember it hitting me so clearly, where actively collaborating and cooperating with each other, with all the jokes and having a laugh and whatever, and people running off and doing their own thing. But the more you actively cooperate, the more the game rewards you and you make progress. And it's not like in a superficial, like, oh, somebody went out and spent 2 hours mining a load of stone, right? There's elements of that because it's survival, gather resource, that kind of thing. But it's more than that, like little simple things. For example, you're on a planet that's just been terraformed. There's no light sources as such other than what you make for yourself. So you want to go out and carry on gathering at night because you've got some, you know, you've got food in your belly and all the rest of it. And you don't feel like there's too much threat, but you don't know because it's pitch black. And then just the fact of somebody coming and standing there and holding a torch so that you can cut a tree down and then see where it is on it. You know, that the game doesn't assist you. There's some assistance in terms of there are symbols that say, oh, look, there's something to chop in front of you on the ground. But the level of like fair frustration of like, oh, I just chopped a tree down, but I have no idea where it fell. And you walk 5 feet and you literally are like, oh my God, it's pitch black. What if there's a bear like another 10 feet over there and I'm just about to, you know, wake it up or whatever. And you have no idea. And you can either kind of cheese it and just be really frustrated and just walk around in circles and oh, there it is, and chop, chop, chop. Or you just have your buddy come over and hold a torch and it's like, oh, well, there you go. What do you know? Working together. And it's the game is just so nicely done. You know, you can see that there's going to be elements where there's some limitation, but the game doesn't feel too repetitive yet. You know, they keep adding new missions and new twists on things and whatnot as well, and they're doing that actively right now in the beginning, which is a real boon. It's not like overpatched or lots of downtime or anything. It's just like, oh, we thought of a couple of things. Here's a couple of additional missions that we've added in for you. And I love that kind of that feeling that things going to rotate and keep it feeling fresh. And I really tried to like nail down in my thoughts what's making it work. And I think that they've got the pace right. The progression, the amount of challenge. So like if you run into a bear and you are underprepared, that bear is mauling you. You can't run away from it and cheese it. You can't like one-shot it with this nice spear you just made or whatever, like until we get to more power. So for where you're at with the time you've spent and how you've progressed through the system and then gathered the resources and built up again from starting your next prospect, you start in a different area of the maps. That's a nice touch as well. You feel like, okay, we kind of know what to expect at this part because you're learning through the game's like it's almost like a tutorial, but a tutorial with like death more. So you get it wrong, you're gonna get your head chewed off. It's as simple as that. But it doesn't bring that frustration like an Ark does of like, oh, you're dead 50 times before you've actually got yourself a little shack, right? And a pickaxe. So it's smoother and swifter and more rewarding as a result for that. But then you take one step too far, you go into an area you're not ready for, the cold zone, or you meet an animal, and again I think they'll add more and more creatures and more. There's a lot of things still to be fleshed out, but the basic premise of if you prepare yourself well and take your time, because you are time limited on your prospect, each one gives you like 7 days or whatever to complete, and it runs in real time. So when you're offline, the time's ticking down.
Oh wow!
Which is an interesting aspect to it, right? So, the game gives you that, you know, and then you've got the weather system and all that. So it gives you enough challenge and a variety of the challenges. It's not like always, oh, here's the same storm. This is exactly what happens. No, there's different types of storms. Some of them you can sort of ignore, others you can't. Some of them you need to hide from or take the risk and so forth. Some of them will damage your building. Some of them won't, and to different levels. You know, temperature aspects. So it's short story. It's like the right amount of challenge. If you prepare yourself well and you think tactically about what you're going to be facing, you can get ready for it. But there's always a little surprise or a little twist where you're like, okay, I didn't see that happening. And then so it keeps you like we went on one, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but we went on one with a predator, and it was like, okay, this is going to be like a challenging like boss or mini boss or something. And it was not exactly that. It was that, but it also was other elements to it, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. And it was like, oh, that's a nice twist. It was horrible because it was like, oh, we're dead. But it taught us something, and we were like, okay, when we get back to that, we've got to have prepared this and this and this and these weapons and use this part of the terrain and do this and think about this other aspect that's going to happen. And so you felt like that challenge was evolving and you had to evolve with the challenge, or you simply wouldn't meet it. And I really enjoyed that. And I'm hoping, because you can play up to 8 people. So far, it's just been Doc and myself, and it's been very, very enjoyable. We're taking it in turns to see who can burn our house down quicker than the other.
I wasn't going to mention that. But yeah, no, the co-op aspect of games. I know we've spoken about that before, and that's something I'm a big fan of. And working together, where you have you have your own role, your own way of doing things, and how you want to set out. You have a clear path for your character, to call it that, and then fulfilling that, but being helped by others through what they do, because they want to do that. It is kind of fun. And I've been playing a game, I played a game on Friday. The first time I played it, I've been looking at it from time to time, called Project Zomboid, which also has very large elements of co-op in it. Now that they've released multiplayer again, they have to rebuild their source code from scratch because they broke it. Yeah. Anyway, so this is like a pixel game set in Kentucky, Knox County. Zombies. Like, I'm done with zombies, but this actually has a fun little twist, and it's almost roguelike in the way that it's set up, because you have some progression. Like, once you have a safe house, you can use that, and you can store stuff there. But like, if you die with your character, that means that the progress you have on that character, for instance, skills you've learned, like, let's say you read a book about farming, that's gone. But the book is still in the base, right? So you can get back there. But like, you can spawn in with a new character again and again and again, and you probably will, and do that. But you mentioned unforeseen things. There was one of the characters where I spawned in a house with an alarm. That's, yeah. No, the thing that happens then is that all the zombies around go, "Ooh, that's a sound. Hello." That means food. So kind of like the bear and whatnot, you know, there's a certain element of, oh shit, run. Where do I? Nope. This is death. So yeah, no, the Icarus part, like, oh man, I wish I had more hours in the day, because I kind of want to play Icarus too. It's been on my radar for a while. I'll be honest.
I'm very happy. This is like one of the few that I've picked up in a sort of like beta. You know, wasn't so much pre-purchase, but I guess it's just beta, so I don't mind that. I did that the same similar thing with New World as well. But this one's really like a little gem. It kind of was almost under the radar a bit. I felt. I mean, maybe I just missed the memo, or whatever, probably. But it's it's turned out to a real gem. I don't know. Somehow games they either get their teeth into you or they don't. And this one is you can enjoy it solo as well, I think. But if you play this with one or more people, it's a lot of fun. And you know, I think,
how's the hosting?
So the hosting that might be something that's a challenge for some people, so depending on time, you know, and people's availability. So it seems to work fairly comfortably, actually, where if either of you can be the host for the session. So it's just the first one in. So it seems fairly stable when people first connect and join your game. It can be, it sort of flakes out for like 30 seconds while it's like calculating and whatever, but then it goes back to normal and being stable. I think that there was a recent patch a week or so ago where Doc after that patch, had some issues of it disconnecting. I experienced that maybe once or twice, not as often as he did. So, you know, I think it's one of those things that they even now, I've just noticed they've dropped a little mini patch today fixing a few things. So I think there'll be some minor frustrations here and there, but overall, I would say for most of the hours that we've played, it hasn't been an issue. And you don't really see, once the game is sort of in and calculated and settled, Like, so the advice I would give is if you know someone's going to join, they're connecting into your session, just wait a minute or two, stay in your base, whatever, let it all happen and work itself out, and then move on. You can still play it. It just kind of goes a bit herky-jerky for a minute.
Is there plans of dedicated servers?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
not sure of their development path on that regard. I need to look it up.
Because I know after playing Zomboid, there's a lot of people out there looking to set up a dedicated or looking to play, and I think I might be able to set up a dedicated server for that. But Icarus also sounds like something that could very well benefit from a dedicated server.
So I think there's two parts to that. One part is that the main sort of prospect, sort of core of the game is designed to be the 7-day cycle, and then you either made it or you didn't, and you start kind of from scratch again. So you remember all your retained knowledge, you earn some sort of space credits that you can spend on specialist items, but you have to craft them each time, and you can also keep them on your person and take them back to the ship. I'm assuming that, but I think that's how it'll work. And then you just choose your loadout for the next mission. There's a limited number of slots for cargo space, and weight makes sense. So I don't know how much it would help in terms of a dedicated system for the general the core sort of prospects, but there is also I think it's called outpost mode or something like that, where you don't have as much of the threat and the time limits and things, and it's basically just build and survive. Now that would be something that might make sense on a dedicated server, because then people could just drop in, build their base over time, have some fun together, and play the game in a more casual, whenever they have time kind of a way.
Yeah. So as a segue, is there because we had a question from my moderator Blutenum, which I feel is something we should discuss a bit. Is there a way that you feel that Icarus could benefit from having Twitch drops? Like, is there a way of having that? To clarify, the question directly says Twitch drops and why gaming companies are not using drops to promote their games. Do they see it as a failure, having to resort to, in quotation mark, drops? And I think it's a good question, because I see two parts of it. One is where a company fails to see the strength of how much viewers actually enjoy getting these drops. Like they fail to see how beneficial it is to have your game be featured in that way by streamers. And let's face it, having a game that does drops is a lot of fun, because you know that there's going to be a lot of people in chat, there's going to be a lot of people interacting, and suddenly you have people coming in and you're like, oh wait, this is kind of a cool channel, I'm going to stick around. And they fail to see just how useful Twitch is as a tool, both for info gathering and also for promotion. But the other part, I think, where I think this fails mostly for a lot of companies, is because they fail to see the promotion part of it, they don't quite know how to invest their own studio into creating something that is worth doing as a drop. Because mostly we're talking cosmetic effects, right? We're not talking something that gives you a combat bonus or anything. But how would you go about doing cosmetic effects in a game like, let's say, Icarus? Let's take Icarus. Like it's fresh on our minds there, and I want to hear your thoughts there. How would Icarus do drops?
Yeah, so I think firstly, thanks Blutenum for the question. I think it's a really good one. For Icarus specifically, I think that there would be, I think that there's actually 2 or 3 different let's say, items or areas that I would look at. I think one of them is that Icarus doesn't have a very mature or it doesn't have much depth in terms of like character creation and ways to sort of have you differentiate your survivors, and I think that, or your prospectors, and I think that that's I don't mind it in the sense that the game itself is so much fun that it doesn't really suffer from it. However, it would be a great augmentation to have more detail, and I think that having cosmetics like different tool sets, different spacesuits, different insignias that people would utilize, different helmets, that sort of thing. And maybe things like I think a little bit like No Man's Sky, where they have this really cool looking decal system, and fish tanks. And I mean, No Man's Sky is an example of something that I think does it really well. I think Icarus could probably have a look at No Man's Sky model, depending on intellectual property and such. But I think that there's something to be learned from the way NMS has looked at drops from time to time, and do something of that ilk. I think it would be. I think that for the time being, there's enough variety, and I think that it gives the Icarus developers time to develop more and to think about how they want to introduce more content. But it could be a missed opportunity to not have Twitch drops and not utilize that as a way of maybe bringing some of that, as you said, mostly more cosmetic stuff through, and making it even more of a draw, get more publicity, get more viewing time and more viewers, and ultimately what we've seen is Icarus is one of those games. It happens in most genres, or a lot of, especially with new stuff, but Icarus is definitely one of those that people sit there, and once they've been there 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever, and they can see, okay, this is how you can play this game. You can have a lot of fun in this. You can team up with friends, and people can see and feel and enjoy the vibe of progression versus challenge in the game. I think it draws people in. We've had a number of people pick the game up in the meantime because they're like, wow, this is, this is really fun. And I think that the Twitch drops would be something that would add to that significantly, because everybody loves to get something for spending a little bit of their time, in air quotes, for free. I think it would be a good opportunity for them, and the numbers speak for themselves. If you look at pretty much across the board everything that I've run into, Sea of Thieves is a good example. You see folks, really cool streamers, really fun, entertaining, like content creators for those programs and whatnot, and they sit there with like really solid numbers like all the time on a regular basis. And then you watch when a big Twitch drop event, or Prime Gaming or a bit of both comes in, and you see those numbers like double or quadruple.
Exactly.
And then so it speaks for itself that people are drawn in, and then you see comments from people like, oh, I'm not normally on Twitch, but I saw this thing was happening. I'm really excited. I love this game. Bang. There you go. Additional people having fun together. So I do think that more companies should take advantage of it. And I think that some that do should probably have a think about, mixing it up a little bit. Wargaming. Because a lot of their stuff, not so much the Prime drops, which are a little bit too rare, I think, but the normal Twitch drop thing is a little bit like they've mixed it up a little bit, but it's a little bit same old, and people are doing it just out of habit more than anything, I think. But and then there's other games where I'm like, they do it once in a blue moon, and you're like, why don't you do this more often? This the numbers should speak for themselves, but maybe I'm only seeing one side of it. I'm not seeing what the cost or whatever they have to pay to be plugged in.
Could it be that this is also a failure on Twitch's side, that they make it too hard to implement, or they're not really reaching out to companies saying, hey, this is a possibility. This is something that we see, because and then they could showcase everything and showcase the numbers, like you said. Because like you mentioned with Wargaming, the drops, I feel like we could benefit from not only getting what is it we're getting now? We're getting a box, and then we get a mission, and that kind of repeats. I would love to see more cosmetic stuff. It's gonna be hard for wargaming to do that because their cosmetic stuff is also something that benefits you financially in game. However, I'm gonna fall back to War Thunder on this one. A long time ago, where War Thunder did a few test drops, they released a Twitch drop skin for the Puma and a P40 Mustang. Now, they released them as separate vehicles, but I'm thinking in a game like War Thunder, where you could have a skin that has no effect on you at all, like it has no monetary effect on you, that's where you can start doing these drops. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Twitch. Yeah, you have, because you commented on it. The Twitch skin that I have for my P40 Mustang, where it has the black, white, and the purple, and kind of like a pattern. I feel like if they do something like that more, War Thunder would really start rising. Because, well, let's face it, it's a cool camo, and everybody wants something different than the standard. And I think that's possibly where most games should go. The cosmetics. The cosmetics that don't really matter, but everybody wants. Dota 2 is a game that has a lot of cosmetics that they don't matter, but they look hella cool. And people are spending a lot of money on the Steam market to purchase these. So I'm like, how about dropping something cool like that? And New World had the Prime Gaming stuff. They had one drop thing at the start where watching X amount of hours, you got the I can't remember what they're called, but you got a sword skin and a shield skin, axe and hammer, and the staff and the glove, I think. Anyway, like you got a set of skins for that. Now I get that the development of these take time, but scale it down. Give us a sticker. Like you say, give us decals. Give us something to customize our own place. It doesn't have to be something that is shiny and needs to be shown at every aspect in the game. No, but it can be something that makes this character our own.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm kind of wondering the same thing as Blutnum. Why aren't people using it? But I don't think it is because they see it as a failure. I rather think it's because they don't know about the possibilities, honestly.
Yeah, I wonder if it ties in a little bit to the topic we've touched on from time to time, probably never ending. But the whole, like, a little bit with the discoverability or just like how familiar, how good is the detail out there? What are the hurdles to be able to integrate your game? Because even when you look at things like Prime Gaming, where there's like even a financial element to it directly, there's not that many games that are in there overall. There's like a couple of pages to scroll through, and then it's like, oh, you're done. And like, if you don't happen to play most of those, as I don't, then there's almost nothing to look for. And the few that you see, like Rockstar did a couple for Red Dead and GTA, and then you've done it and you claim it once and that's it. And then there's nothing else that follows up on it. So I don't know why there's a hurdle there. What, maybe there's some kind of financial barrier to entering into it or whatever. Because if it's just their own development cost, the amount of time and effort and marketing that goes into producing these games and maintaining them and sort of publicizing them, it's got to be worth it. Because if you spend an extra couple of whatever person days developing couple of skins for something, even if you spend several days, it's not going to be an exorbitant amount. It shouldn't be. And the amount of additional, like, call it in air quotes, free advertising or whatever, and publicity for because people talk about it. They're like, oh, I was playing such and such the other day, and other people are like, well, I'm not on Twitch, or I don't play that game, whatever, but you're just talking to your friend or your relative or whatever about it, and you just happen to be like, oh, but I got this really cool axe and it looks absolutely amazing, and they're like, oh, send me a picture of it.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, you've got someone else saying, oh, wow, that's really cool that they're doing. And it just creates positive energy around your product. I hope that more people would take it up. Maybe there's some knowledge somewhere in the background of why it's difficult or not sought after. But, the numbers, again, Twitch is essentially a numbers game. And the numbers just seem to speak for themselves in everything I've seen. I've never seen like drops arrive and everyone's like, nope, we're not in here for now because until these bloody drops end, I'm not watching it.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody say that. So if anybody who is listening actually has knowledge as to the process around getting a drop in a game or such, and I'm not talking speculation, I'm talking actual answers. Like, what's the business end of it? Talking to Twitch and getting to that place where you can have drops. And if anybody knows, please shed some light on it. If you can't, wink twice, please. I don't know, because of NDA or something. I don't know. But I would love to learn more. I could probably reach out to the people doing Scum and see if they have any insight, because I did mention Twitch drops to them as a way of upping the amount of viewership. So yeah, that could be cool. But I can probably try to reach out to them, see if they have an answer.
I hope it's not as simple as something like, well, if we give out all that free stuff, then we don't get money for this, that, and the other, But I don't know. I just think there's ways of making it unique, and I feel like it creates more interest, and the benefits far outweigh the negatives. But yeah, either that, we might be able to get something out of the Gaijin team, perhaps.
Maybe. We'll see.
Because they do drops occasionally, and I think that's something they're looking to hopefully get more into, and go for it, is what I say.
Yes, indeed. I gotta keep an eye on the time because I have a doctor's appointment at 1 and I need to be there a tiny bit before. Okay. But let's move swiftly along. You mentioned Icarus, and I know that you've been doing some role-playing in it, and we did have a question from, was it Mari?
Yes.
Role-playing in video games. And subsequently, what is the best one for it?
Yeah, indeed. So we've tried role-playing in a variety of games. Some of the ones that I've directly had a go in were Conan. We've played Atlas. We've played Ark, Myth of Empires, a little bit, some Valheim, where we had a pretty good success. A little bit of Red Dead and a bit of Icarus now. And the question was like, what works well? What are good examples? And I've been doing some thinking and talking, and spoke to another streamer friend of mine, Rep the 21st, who we met through Atlas role playing together, and he was having a go at Myth of Empires the other day. Myth of Empire has two fundamental challenges. One, the copyright attack that they're under from Arc Atlas or from Arc for allegedly borrowing stuff they shouldn't have, and to the fact that other than on the official servers, the PvP is broken. So on the custom servers where people really want to get down and dirty with roleplay and have some fun together, you have to use your own voice solution. So it's not really conducive. But I think that from my recent experiences and reflecting on it, I feel like the pace of the game in terms of your progression versus challenge is one aspect that either works and is conducive to role playing, and I can give some examples in a minute, or it can really hinder and obstruct role playing and get to a point where people are too frustrated to continue. And the other big one for me, I'm not, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are my thoughts so far, is what I can just call access to the map. And
exactly. It needs to be open. You need to have access to things, and not gatekeep, because that's something that kind of struck me. That you might have areas that are slightly more dangerous, but not locked off completely. Like, you should be able to kind of go, okay, let's sneak in here. And as long as you're good with stealthing, you should be able to get closer and kind of view this big bad mother hunker that's out there, where you kind of go, okay, we're not going to tackle him yet. And then you kind of sneak back, and that's an adventure on its own. That is something that struck me as you mentioned the map availability.
Yeah. So, like, I was thinking about this in terms of games where I felt like it works well, and games where I felt like it's been like too complicated somehow, or too frustrating. So one that I thought works, or that does work incredibly well in my experience, is Atlas, where Atlas is completely open. There's a few, what we call the Nope Islands, where all the big bad evil monsters are, and you can't settle there and so forth. But apart from that, you can go anywhere. You can even go on those islands if you want to and just get murdered and whatever. But you can, one of the beauties of Atlas is that you can go anywhere and kind of set yourself up, and you have to just deal with, if it's too hot, or if it's too cold, or what grows there, or what doesn't, what resources you need, that kind of thing. But essentially Atlas is about seafaring and travel and visiting each other's ports, from a role-playing point of view, and letting stories unfold and be told together. And Atlas does that fantastically. Atlas frustrates me as a game in other ways, with some of its sort of instability issues and modding and goodness knows. But the fact that the sort of the core system is go and live anywhere you want, and then meet people on the sea or on other islands, and that works really well. And funnily enough, even though it's not really meant in that way, Red Dead feels very much like that, where even just the online version, you have this entirely open world, and if you want to go to the northern corner and fish, you do that. And if you want to go like through the forests in the cold winter, there's bears out there, so you can prepare yourself, but you can do that. There's some limitations in terms of, like, camps are always in fixed sort of areas and whatever, so it's not full, it's not a survival game in that sense. But essentially, if you want to role play in that world, you can, the world doesn't force you to do anything particularly, or to not do something. You can basically make your decisions and take your risks with your character. So those are two examples where I think it really works. And it's funny because Myth of Empires, I haven't played enough of it to really sort of think, have a full fleshed out set of thoughts on it yet, but it gives me the same sort of feels a little bit with Conan, where Conan, on the face of it, looks like it offers you that. But I think in Conan, one of the big challenges is the way that they've tried to monetize, like, their DLCs and the building materials and stuff, and they've made everything kind of this tier 3, this top tier. So getting all of that stuff is, at least initially, for your sort of setup phase, a bit of a ball ache, to be honest. You got to jump through a lot of hoops, and I feel like I don't know what it is with Conan where it doesn't quite get its teeth into me, its hooks into me. I think it's the darkness of the world, and that it's constantly this dark world, and there's no kind of counterbalance to that in any way other than what you create for yourself. But even the things you've created are all about, how do we survive this dark, oppressive world? And I don't have a problem with that as a story world, but I feel, for me as a person, it's a little bit it's a little bit like too constantly kind of dark. And I think that some of the building mechanic aspects take away. So what you don't want is, you don't want your potential role players to have to kind of burn themselves out so much on dealing with the mechanics and getting set up that that as much as we'd like to abstract away and say, right, now we role play, we've spent 15 hours building a hut. Now we role play, because the reality is everyone's like not online at the same time, or just worn out, or it becomes you get too obsessed into the mechanical aspect, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you're playing essentially the game for a different purpose. It becomes about a different purpose and a different focal point. And we experienced quite a lot of that, I think, or that was one of my takeaways from the Conan experience. And the other thing is that there's a mechanic with like raids on, I can't remember what they're called, but where you get attacked every few days or whatever.
Yeah,
And you can
the
make some
purge.
adjustments. Yeah, the purge, that's it. Thank you. And like, so like if you move to certain map areas and you're like, oh, wow, this is stunning. This would be a perfect role play area. But then you need, for example, the tier 2 or most likely the tier 3 and the, time and enough people to defend it and everything. Otherwise, you're going to get wiped out. So you've got a perfect opportunity to say, let's set up in, I don't know, the swamps or something, or some ruins or somewhere in the snowy lands to the north. But you can't really fight those people or the enemies you meet there. You can't really survive a purge up there without ridiculous amounts of effort and investment of your time and energy into building up and reaching those levels. And by the time you've done that, you probably don't feel like role playing very much anymore.
Well, what I see with the Conan experience is that you can turn off a lot of the stuff. Like the purge can be completely turned off. Sandstorms can be completely turned off, so you don't have to worry about those. But what I'd love to see more in those games is more of an active GM mode, where you could, in theory, story tell through it. Where you have one GM that kind of guides you on your journey and is this godlike feature that talks to you and plops down enemies and maybe spawns in a tiny raid and you have to defend against that, but does it in a way where you know about it or you are in the right place for when it happens. Which is why I like Arma 3 for role-playing. Arma 3 with its Zeus game mode is absolutely excellent. Like, it's a mill sim, but you have the opportunity of role-playing. And for anybody who's familiar with Soviet Womble and seeing what they've done, they're not quite role-playing, but they still have the idea, okay, today we are playing as the insurgents of the island, and then they make the insurgent group the Badgers, and then that kind of evolves on its own thing. And go watch Soviet Womble and his Arma 3 bullshittery videos. They are wonderful, but that world, again, open map. You don't have to have any sort of set gear to do anything. You could sneak around and not be seen, as long as you're sneaky enough. There's no problem. But it's the idea of being able to go around and do whatever is that's big for me when it comes to being able to role play. Because if you're not feeling like doing that part of it, then you shouldn't. Like, you shouldn't be forced to level up just to go explore a map, I feel.
Yep. And I think that, so, that's kind of the nutshell for me so far is, I think that you need that progression challenge to be relevant and kind of tangible, but not excessive, and not I feel anything that forces you to mechanically grind through the game to reach a point where you then, to reach that first sort of phase of the setup is done. Like, so I think there's two types of setup. There's the setup of like, okay, we want to portray a small, coastal village, so we're going to build up a few buildings and give things a certain look, put some signs up, do a bit of, get that basic setup phase. That was always going to exist. And what I think, and then there's maybe the other kind of setup where it's excessive, where the game somehow mechanically forces you to go so ham on that to reach that point, that setup point where you're like, okay, we can start now. That in my experience so far, my observation, people have kind of burned themselves out by the time you get there. And that causes additional frictions and tensions to come up, and people like disagreeing about, why did we do this, or why are we doing that, or everything that detracts away from having the energy and the sort of creative space to be effective in a role play scenario. So yeah, well, there's definitely some opportunities out there.
That's where I feel like an active GM could be cool to have, because then you could kind of go, oh, the effervescent god of the bubbly stuff. I could really use 2 walls and a nail right now to do this thing that I want to do. And the god goes, oh, there you go, spawn, whatever. And then you have it, like, but where the preparation phase doesn't become the struggle of the game, because it shouldn't be.
Yep.
Like I said, need to keep an eye on the time here. I'm just watching the topics, and I know we're going to talk a lot about these.
Maybe we just need to save some up. It's not a problem to bring a couple up. We did have quite a bundle of questions and comments from viewers this time, which was fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Those who did that.
Thank you indeed. Something that I think we can, like, I don't know, like, what? Oh, I don't want to axe any of these, honestly, but we kind of have to. Because I need to be going in about 12 minutes. Are we skipping directly to something to smile about here?
We could do. Yeah. We definitely are very respectful of the questions we got, and we will get back to them.
Yes.
But they don't have 2-second or 20-second answers.
They don't, sadly. But I really want to talk about what happens when a player is killed in a role-playing game. I want to talk about that at some point. No, we are skipping that, but I want to talk about it at some point. And I also want to talk a bit about our lessons learned around running a guild in New World at some point too. But we're going to have to skip those now. So we're going straight to something to smile about. I'm sorry for those who might have been looking at those topics and thinking, ooh, this is interesting. You'll just have to listen in on episode 1, season 2, coming up in January 2022. Anyway, Grumbles. How was BOBSmas?
It was awesome. It was different this time around, different format, spread over 2 weekends. Lots of different games and products involved than last time around, where it was pretty much exclusively World of Warships, I believe. But it was an absolute blast, and it was so wonderful to see yet again the community come together, support each other, raise funds, but also raise awareness, share stories, talk about the actual impact, have active members of BOBSmas who were the donation cause we were working towards, be active and online with us throughout the event as well. I believe there's an interview done as well, and some online articles on their website too from some of our members, talking with them about the experience and how we've been able to help. So it was just nice to be able to connect in a meaningful manner and have people around who could see and experience, and share their sides of the story with us as well. That was really, really positive. And it was nice to see some variety in there. I know that's challenging sometimes because you want to have high numbers, and we know how staunchly, redonkulously loyal people are to some of the, especially the wargaming products. But it was really nice to be able to just feel that energy, to see people participating, playing along, joining squads and divisions, giving ideas and suggestions for events. Really, really cool. And at one point, I was in Texas Hula's workshop in his beer fridge.
Hey.
It was pretty cold, but there was lots of free Guinness. So thanks, Spectre, for buying that Guinness for me.
There you go.
But that was also very nice and very special sort of highlight for me to be able to support my good friend Hula, who's such a wonderful person. I mean, you only see that, a glimpse of it on the stream in the background. Just such an absolutely great person. So big props to him, because putting on something different like that, doing live creative woodwork that has an element of danger to it as well. You know, there's a lot of spinning objects and fast moving screwdrivers and so forth. And to be able to be part of that and assist in that and hang out with Purple Daisy, who's a fantastic moderator and great humorous person as well to hang out with, was a real joy. So thanks for everybody who came along for that as well. How about yourself, Tiger?
Well, for the last few weeks now, I've had somebody living together with me. My girlfriend. And I'm not gonna go into details because it's our personal life or anything. But there's one thing that really made me smile. That I think most gamers and streamers will kind of chuckle at and understand is having somebody living together with you that understands the mindset and the needs of a gamer / streamer, where they know that gaming is an important part. They know that streaming requires certain things. It requires a certain dedication. So they themselves then help enable you through making food, bringing it to you on your desk so that you're able to eat there and then, and adjusting things around what everybody else would call normal day life. But let's face it, as a gamer and a streamer, everyday life is a bit different. But just that part of having that happen where somebody understands and helps do that was kind of like a, yeah, this is nice. I like this.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like how many times have we not seen a streamer go, I need food, and then disappear and come back later and sit there crunch on toast or
I'm not going to comment on
or
this
whatever
part of the segment. Personal attack.
But Lord knows how many times I've done it. But having that moment where it's just, no, this is something I really appreciate, and I'm not gonna say can get used to. I would love to be able to get used to it, but I'm not gonna say it. But I'm gonna instead go for I appreciate this a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like being aware and appreciative and showing that and keeping that in mind. And not getting kind of comfortable in the sense of taking it for granted. I don't think that's the point at all. But I think that's great, and I think that there's a lot of stigmas out there. It's like we see it all the time. Like even big scale streamers and things, like not the super big ones. I think they pretty much they've made it. They've got their contract with Twitch or whoever and all their sponsors. But I think like pretty much everyone else, like 99.9%, everyone else, there are certain stigmas in there of like, oh, you're just playing a game, or oh, you're just streaming, or and people, it's such a new thing, relatively speaking, that we haven't reached the point yet where outside of the space of the platform and the generation or not generation, but all the people that have sort of actively plugged in and have become aware of it, that's a relatively small minority of people, and everyone else is like, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a doctor, or I'm a carpenter, or I work in this office, or I work for so and so, and this kind of thing is very sort of defining, and in some ways too much people define themselves on this. But if you like, what do you even answer? You say, well, I'm a full-time streamer. A lot of, really, the vast majority of people just look at you like, what's that?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Oh, that sounds sweet. What do you really do though? What do you do for a living? How do you contribute? And it's like, no, this is how I earn income and pay taxes and give back to the community and hopefully try and entertain and make people feel better. And there's a lot to it and we haven't reached that kind of normality or whatever you want to call it in a positive sense. So that's really cool to hear, Tiger. I'm very happy for.
So Yeah, no, the stigma is real, which is why usually when people ask, I say I live stream entertainment on the internet.
Mm.
And they're like, oh, yes, like live stream TV only on the internet. Ah, okay. Oh, there you go. It gives them more of a tangible thing that they can relate to, you know. So
yeah.
But yeah, we are quickly running out of time, and I hate to rush this because I would love to speak more on the last few things without delaying anything. But it's gonna have to be for a different time. Who knows? Maybe a bonus stream. I don't know. We'll just figure it out.
Exactly.
Anyway, I've been the Tiger. He's been the Grumbles. But we would like to say thank you for exiting the port with us once again. And happy holidays, happy new year. And we'll see you for episode 1 or season 2 in 2022. Bye.
Good vibes, everyone. Bye-bye.